What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, and just a couple of other tickers. I'm also going to break down the head and shoulders developing on all the different charts, what this means for the markets, and what's going on with Tesla's deliveries report, which is going to be coming out very, very soon. But before I break anything down about all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. So, anyways, let's break down what's going on with Tesla. In the morning, we saw a very nice pump on Tesla. It bumped almost to about 255 a share, which is what we were expecting. It managed to hold up for the majority of the day, outperforming the market for the most part. And then as time went on, it started to look a little weaker. And this is when I released a video about how Tesla likely had some downside coming right over here when we were very close to this 250 zone. Then Tesla started selling off all the way down to this 246 level, came right back up, and we closed almost exactly where we opened for a very flat day in terms of the intraday volatility. We did gap up, which is why Tesla closed green, but for the most part, we just closed right where we opened. So that is very important because on the daily chart, Tesla is once again looking indecisive, forming this doji right over here. And that could be a signal for a possible reversal. Nothing is guaranteed, though, as we have deliveries nonetheless. So now I want to talk about something else. Uh, with deliveries, Wall Street's expecting Tesla, for the most part, to see a decline. They're not giving us very high expectations, with pretty much on average it being around this 462,000 area, around that range. And we will see if Tesla ends up beating that report or not. On top of this, I just wanted to mention that the short interest on Tesla has gone up. We saw about 40.93 million Tesla shares shorted just 2 days ago. That is once again another increase. And with the shorts piling in, they're going to benefit greatly if Tesla ends up seeing more and more downside. So we saw some short covering, I would say, for parts of yesterday, even like in the morning today, but then we may have seen more shorts repositioning right before Tesla's big event. When is Tesla going to be launching or at least announcing their Q3 delivery reports? The answer is going to be on Sunday. It's going to be coming out most likely by Sunday, I believe. I think that's when we're going to find out what's about to happen. This is going to cause a big move in the share price. And as we're approaching this big event, the technicals look a little bit weak for Tesla and the whole market at the same time. So when you look at Tesla using TradingView, you're going to notice something very interesting going on. Right now, it's looking a little weaker compared to before. So let's actually pull up Tesla. You will see that Tesla right here made an attempt to bounce, and we got this nice rejection. So we're forming a very clean looking head and shoulders like pattern. Now, looking at the current formation on it, I just want to call out the fact that we have this gap down here, right? We have this very profound gap way down here on Tesla around this 215 area. So this will be an area of interest if Tesla ends up breaking below its 200 EMA at this 230 area. That's going to be a very key level. Now, we have a head and shoulders like pattern, but we also have the same thing on SPY, on Aapl, on Nvda, and many other tickers, which I will talk about in just a few minutes very briefly. I just wanted to mention that this is valid so far, and this is a little concerning for many investors. Now, this overall formation ended up forming at a very, very key level. You guys can see it right here. We had this Fibonacci retracement forming right when Tesla just ended up closing just below this like 0.618 retracement area. And we rejected very close to the 0.5 retracement. I think I went a little overboard with that part. So it's like right here is where the 0.5 happens to be, very close to where the high happens to be. So we had some key retracement levels, which Tesla ended up entering. And we ended up seeing Tesla retracing off of them. And this could be a potential top forming. So I'm seeing two possibilities. I mean, to be honest with everyone, there is a possibility that we're going to form this large head and shoulders. And we could see Tesla make just a full measured move all the way back down. So we have like this possible head right here. We have the left shoulder. I don't know if the top is in for the right shoulder or not. It could go either way. But if it's in and Tesla's about to see a rug pull, this is what it could end up doing, as October tends to be a weak month for the markets. There's a possibility of this. If that's not the case, I mean, there's always the possibility of us kind of like filling this gap above first before Tesla ends up coming down. There are two possibilities. We'll just have to wait and see, but downside does seem very probable with the current technicals. All right. So can I promise that Tesla's going to drop? The answer is no. It depends on deliveries. If Tesla meets expectations and barely does 462,000, it could still drop because expectations are very high. And Tesla's oftentimes expected to do extremely well. They have very, very strong reputations. Tesla's known for being very notorious for beating expectations. And if they just barely meet this, this could be a sign of decline, a sign of weakness in the eyes of investors that could slow it down. So if Tesla gives us like 462,000 or below that, we could see downside. If Tesla gives us anything above that, we could see some more positive price action, but not like entirely. We need to see Tesla beat it by some margin for it to give us some very positive price action. We need like 470,000 plus or something like that in deliveries for us to achieve something like that. We're also going to see lots of data relative to the previous quarter, so that's going to be very telling as well. They produced 479,000 and they delivered 466,000 during the last quarter. We'll see if Tesla could compare to some numbers like that. So, anyways, with the Chinese numbers looking kind of weak, Wall Street's expecting some declines on Tesla. We will see if that ends up being the case or not. But just know that from a technical standpoint, we have a head and shoulders forming that's quite large, and the odds do favor the downside, but no guarantees can be made because deliveries can be, once again, capricious. Now, to add on to this, what else is very interesting would be SPY and all these other tickers. I'm just going to be very brief with this part because I'm going to talk about the tickers in more detail on Sunday. But just to be brief, we have this head and shoulders on SPY that is developed right here. You guys can see we have this left shoulder here. We have the head right here and the right shoulder potentially forming, which could lead to more downside. Okay, we have this on SPY. It looks a little bit more clean on the QQQ. QQQ has the same thing. We have this left shoulder, the head, the right shoulder forming. Downside is a possibility for the QQQ if that ends up playing out. Aapl, same thing, right? We have this left shoulder, head, right shoulder potentially forming for some potential downside. That's a possibility based off this formation. Nvda, same thing. Left shoulder, head, right shoulder forming for some potential downside. There's a possibility of that as well. So we're seeing this all over the place, the same formation. Is it a coincidence, or could it be that the algos are getting ready to make a collective sell-off? Could that be what's about to happen? I can't say that with any promises, but I am leaning a little bit more in that direction just by looking at the technicals and how we performed for Friday. All right. So looking at SPY, I just want to call out a couple of things on SPY before I talk more about Tesla to end this video. On SPY, I just want to mention this. SPY has some very, very beautiful looking technical developments. When I zoom out of the chart, first off, we can use our fib retracement tool to kind of to just like measure this move. So we can actually look like right here, and you will notice that this was a very, very clean looking potential attempt to the upside. If you look at this top right here, you can see that we basically came very close to where this top resistance happens to be at the supply zone. That's where we retraced from. So it is very close, but not exact, but it's close to where the top of the supply zone happened to be. That's where the Fibonacci retracement area happens to be. And with that fib level and the rejection that came on SPY, it's looking a little weaker. So we have this historical support right here. You guys can see I connected these lines back here with the green trend line. That is our support, right? When you zoom into it, that's going to be a very key level. It looks like we may test either that or the 200 EMA. If that breaks, this support is going to be everything for SPY. It's got to hold that. If it breaks this green support line, we're going to be falling to 418 to 420, most likely, right? We also have gaps well below. The government shutdown could play a big role. I'm going to talk more about that tomorrow, but I just want to warn everyone that this is a real possibility. I could also add that we have the gap below. To turn bullish, you want to see it break above 436 right here. You want to break 436 and hold above that for us to turn bullish. So far, it hasn't done that. It just looks weak nonetheless. So now I want to just talk about something else that's important. That's going to be our other formations out there. I'm going to be using an Elliott wave perspective. So if you look at Elliott wave, we quite clearly have a wave one, wave two right here, but I don't know if wave three has been completed and we're about to get this level 4 before we end up sinking down. And October tends to be historically a bearish month for the markets when we end up selling off. I don't know if that's what it's going to look like, or if we truly are bearish right now, we could still be in wave 3. Wave 3 could be even more bearish, as wave 3 tends to be the weakest wave. And then we could get a backtest of this trend line like this before we get the final bottom sometime in October before the market bounces for November. That's a hypothetical example, right? What could trigger this? Many different factors, from earnings to the Fed speakers at least, because we don't actually have an FOMC official meeting in October, I believe. I think it's going to be a little later. But I'm just trying to say there are all these things going on in the markets, the government shutdown. I'm going to talk more about that later, but I just want to make it clear, okay? SPY, it looks like it's favoring downside from an Elliott wave perspective. Whether or not we already completed wave three, we're getting a small bounce, and then we're about to get the big sell off, or if we're still in wave three and we're going to get a back test first before we get the bigger sell off to finally bottom for the markets. Either way, downside is looking more imminent from an Elliott wave perspective. And with that being said, okay, this is important because the algorithms, the robots dictating the markets, are connected. When Tesla sells off very hard, you guys notice that it happens to be around the times, maybe a little bit later, but sometimes very closely to when SPY sells off, to when Nvda sells off. The market moves very similarly because the robots are dictating the price action. They sell at certain phases, they track one another, and they tend to resemble each other in terms of price action. That's the reason why there's so many similarities between how Tesla moves, SPY, and etc. Right? Just like how I always call this out with the robots dictating the markets. Look at SPY next to Tesla; they're very similar when they sell off here, they pumped here, sell off, they pump, sell off, pump, sell off, pump, and sell off together very similarly. Look at the QQQ. Same thing, almost identical as Tesla. Tesla does dictate it to some extent, but it's not just that. There are other tickers that resemble it simultaneously, right? They sold off together here, they pumped together, came down, pumped, pumped, came down, pumped, and came down, almost in unison. It's very crazy when you actually think about it. So it just shows how connected these charts are, and SPY with this bearish formation is not a good sign for Tesla. I just want to be as honest as possible. All right. So it made an attempt to bounce. I'm talking about Tesla now. It tried to bounce. It really wanted to, but it failed to hold the key level. And we have this head and shoulders pattern now. So I would be very careful when looking at Tesla. I'd be very careful in playing it. And I just want to warn everyone about this as we have some clean looking technical developments. All right. So we're going to be waiting to see what happens with deliveries. I think it's going to be coming out either Sunday or Monday, but I think Sunday is going to be the day. I'll come back to you guys about that later. And when the data comes out, this is going to be very important, very telling for Tesla as a whole. Okay, it's going to affect Tesla big time. So watch this very carefully. Watch this head and shoulders. Watch your technicals and get ready for some big data that's going to be dropping very soon for Tesla as we're going to find out how the Q3 deliveries report went for them. All right, so hopefully this video was helpful. I want the best for everyone. Enjoy the weekend. I'll have one more video where I talk more about the government shutdown for tomorrow. And that's pretty much it for the weekend. I'll talk more about Tesla as well. And I just want the best for everyone. Thank you for listening. Have a great weekend. And I'll see you guys very soon on the next one. Thank you and peace out.